Hello, it's finally 2020 and I'm so excited for a new year. Here is a flip through of last year's bullet journal. So my first page basically has a quote on it that I thought kind of set the theme for my 2019. Looking back at it, I don't really like this page that much. The next page that I have is a monthly colors page, in which I planned out my colors for each month. But I barely use this page, so I don't think I'll be including it in this year's journal. I have a goals page, of course, and I really like this one because it allows me to see my progress. So this is something that I'll be continuing. After that, I have a 2019 in pixels. Basically, this is a spread that allows me to rate my mood for each day in a box. And the idea behind it is that the entire grid will be filled up by the end of the year. Unfortunately, I gave up on this during March because I felt like I wasn't gaining anything from it. I also have a monthly thanks page, which is a good idea in theory, but for someone with no motivation, it felt more like a burden. And I also have a things to watch page, which I barely used. On the next two pages, I have a shopping list and also a things bought page. But now I just write those two things down on my phone, so I really don't have a use for these anymore. I wrote down a schedule of my semester as well, which I didn't use at all because I ended up memorizing it, and a college courses page to track what classes I needed to take. After that, I began my actual journal. So for the month of January, I kept things really simple. I just wrote down the month and then for every day made a list. Literally the easiest thing ever for me because it required no planning and just a colored box with a number inside of it. For February, I decided to make a mini calendar at the start, which I didn't end up using much because all the calendars I use are digital. And then underneath that, a monthly to-do, just like the previous month. For each of its days, I wrote the day of the week, the date, and then made lists underneath that. Honestly, I only filled out 2 weeks for this month before I gave up. But regardless, I really liked how simple this was. In March, I didn't make a monthly page, but I did try out something different. For the first week of March, I made lines and decided I really liked them. So I made them a bit cuter for the next week. This was my first time experimenting with lines and a more planner-like bullet journal, and it felt so easy for me because I could just make the sections all at once without having to go back every week and do them. And for me, that was a huge bonus because I am lazy and unmotivated. For April, I accidentally made a month page again, as you can see, and I put lol, this page is so stupid at the top. But the same weekly spreads from March continued in April. The same went for May. And I started experimenting with shadows next to my dates too. Honestly, these 2 months might be my favorites. After that, I just have a few pages with memories from my trips and planning for the summer. During June, I kept the same style from March and April, but shortened it because I was only taking summer classes. I actually made a video explaining this month, if you would like to check that out. Okay, here I got a new bullet journal, so half of July is actually in another journal. Unfortunately, I spilled something on it, so you'll see some water damage when I show you. It's basically the same spread once again. And I really liked these because they allowed me to do everything at once. I didn't have to go back. And then there's a meal prep page that I never used. And now we're on to August. For August, I wanted to use my bullet journal more for school, so here's a schedule page that I never filled out. I basically took the sections from the last few months and made them horizontal instead of vertical to give myself space for lists on the bottom of my page. I actually have a video describing this month as well. For September, I kept the same style, but added a section to the top to remind me of which classes I had each day. In October, I felt really fancy, so I made a monthly page again with things to fill out, and as you can see, it's empty. I took the section at the top from September and just embedded it into my sections in October so that I could stretch out the boxes and give myself more space to write. In August and September, I found myself writing really small, so for October, I made the boxes much bigger. For the rest of October, I was too overwhelmed to use my bullet journal, so I took a break. For November, I made another monthly page, which, again, I didn't use. Honestly, I'm not sure why I make these every month, even though I know I'm never going to use them. But whatever, at least it looks cute. For this month, I wanted to break away from the structure, and I actually only did like 1 week in my journal. I basically made a box of things to do and just went back to making lists because the sections in October clearly didn't work for me at the time. And then it was December, which was when I spilled tea all over my bullet journal. But regardless of that, this was my favorite spread of the entire year. I actually made a video on this spread, if you would like me to explain that in detail. But the pattern of lists continued in this journal. After I spilled tea on this notebook, I transferred the information from December to my other journal, which you can see here. And of course, there were more lists. Now, let's go on to my 2020 journal. In the past year, I realized just how unmotivated I was. So I kept this front page super short and sweet, with 2020 in the middle in black and outlined in gray. I think I might add a quote or something later, but for now, it's perfect. And yes, of course, I made another month page, but for this one, I don't have anything to fill out. But basically, I just wrote January with a brush pen and then added drop shadows with my highlighter in red. I honestly didn't feel like doing much for the beginning of the year, so the only 2 pages I'm having are the goals page and also the courses page. I found that these 2 pages were the only pages I referred back to in my old journal, so I didn't want to waste space. For these 2 pages, I just made a line with my gray highlighter and wrote the headings on top. I actually used a really big brush pen for this part by accident, so it's a bit sloppy, but it'll have to do. After that, I basically copied my spread from December. I made a mistake on this page. I actually forgot that the first day of the week wasn't the first day of the month, so just ignore the top, but I ended up changing this page into another list. I'm writing before school at the top of another page and cutting it out because I wanted to make a list of things that I needed to do before school started. As you can see, I'm now copying my spread from December. And yeah, that's it. I hope that this video gave you some inspiration and also reminded you that it's okay to switch styles or not bullet journal for a while. I used to feel pressured to journal in the past, which is why I never started. But this past year, I experimented a lot and began to understand what worked for me. I hope all of you have a wonderful year and enjoy your bullet journals if you decide to start them. As always, thank you so much for watching. Bye!